Welcome to Executive Access, created for motivated professionals. This is your home for real talk with executives about their career journeys, leadership practices, successes, and learnings along the way. I am your host, Jamie Tazi. Today, I want to talk to you about growth mindset. I am literally obsessed with growth mindset. I first learned about it when I was at Microsoft and saw it just literally transform the organization. I've used it in my own family and feel like because of it, I'm raising tough, resilient kids. So in 2014, Microsoft's stock price was sitting at $36 a share. 2014 is significant because that's when Satya Nadella took over as the new CEO. 2 years later, that stock price had doubled, and 2 years after that, it had doubled again. When Satya came on board, everybody was very excited. Steve Ballmer had done a great job, I think, but I think people were looking for a change. So in 2014, everybody said, Satya, what are you going to do? You're going to bring new products and technology and new technology vision to the table. But that's not where he started. He said, actually, Microsoft, we need to focus on our culture. And with that, he brought growth mindset to the table, Carol Dweck's growth mindset, and enlisted the help of all of us executives to make sure we got it right across the entire organization. Now, I know you might be saying, well, there was a lot going on in 2014 that had to do with that increase in the stock price. And in fact, there is a phenomenal podcast called Acquired that details out, recently did a case study on Microsoft that's really, really good. You should listen to. But what I will tell you is that the growth mindset culture that Satya put in place had as much to do with the significance of what happened at Microsoft than literally anything. It created an environment where people teamed better and they worked differently and they innovated. So I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. But first of all, what is growth mindset? Most times when I talk to my friends and family about it, I'll say, do you know what growth mindset is? And most people say, well, sort of. I kind of have an idea of what it is. And so I want to explain it in this short video. I want to share some examples of when you see it and how it works, and then give you some ideas around how you can practice it and put it in place right after this video. So growth mindset was created, although she would say discovered, by Carol Dweck, a PhD at Stanford University. And Carol Dweck basically said a growth mindset is the belief that people's abilities can be developed through learning and practice. Sounds pretty simple, right? But really, it's this idea that, when you have a growth mindset, that is a predictor of great accomplishment. And when you have a growth mindset, it means you have a love of learning and you have deep resiliency. So what is a growth mindset? It's probably the best way to explain it is to compare a growth mindset with its opposite, a fixed mindset. And before I share some stories, please know that none of us is a growth mindset all the time or has a fixed mindset all the time. In fact, I have been practicing growth mindset for more than 10 years, and I still catch myself getting into a fixed mindset every single day. So, for example, not too long ago, some friends of mine called me and they said, Jamie, we want to take an art class. Every Tuesday night, we'll go, do some art and have some wine. And would you like to join us? And before I could even think about it, it came out of my mouth. I said, no. I'm not an art person. I'm a rows and columns spreadsheet kind of gal. No art for me, right? Complete fixed mindset. Because if I had a growth mindset, I would be thinking, I'm not that great of an artist today, but if I work on it, if I apply myself, I can get a lot better than I am today. I might never be Van Gogh, but I can get better. So growth mindset, a fixed mindset. Another great example, seeing it in action, when my husband and I learned about growth mindset in 2014, we were raising, at the time, 3 young boys. They all loved soccer. And we made it a practice every single day that they came home from practice or they came home from a game. And we would give them a compliment. We would say, great job today. What do you think is one thing you did really well? And they would tell us. And they would say, and then we would say, what is one thing that you want to improve on? What's one thing that you learned today that you can do better, right? And so it was always this balance. There's always something to learn. There's always something to improve. And we didn't let them wallow in all the things they couldn't control, like a bad referee making a bad call. It was all about what can you control. And so all elements of the growth mindset. So, describing this a little bit deeper, when you're in a fixed mindset, you are avoiding challenges. You avoid challenges and you don't take risk. Because when you are in a fixed mindset, you literally have this belief that you were born the way you are. You're as smart as you'll ever be. You tend to say, I'm not an artist like I did, right? When you move into a growth mindset, you embrace challenges. You think, you know what, I might not be good at that today, but I'm going to work hard and let's see how far I can go. When you're in a fixed mindset, you really don't like constructive feedback and you're sort of threatened by the success of others. It's because when somebody gives you constructive feedback and you really don't have this belief that there's more you can do about it. And when you see others being successful at something that you're not successful at yet, you don't like that because it just points out to you that others can do it. Okay. Versus when you're in a growth mindset, you sort of crave the constructive feedback. I'm not sure I ever love hearing constructive feedback, but I like it because I know it's going to help me get better. I also love seeing others be successful because it gives me something to shoot for. I'm like, that's going to be me. I can do that. If you can do it, I can do it too. And then finally, when you're in a fixed mindset, we tend to see the outcome being low innovation. Well, think about it. If you're not pushing yourself to challenge yourself, if you're not trying new things and testing your limits, you're really not innovating. Whereas when you're in a growth mindset, you're tending to push yourself, try. Even if you fail, you're learning something so that you can get better. And so people and organizations that demonstrate a strong growth mindset are typically demonstrating more innovation. And I think you know where I'm going as I turn this into an organizational statement in a few minutes. So if you're sitting here right now and saying, great, I want to figure out how I can have a growth mindset, the best way to start is to start practicing. I read somewhere that the average person has 60,000 thoughts a day. That's a lot of thoughts. In fact, you're watching this video. Hopefully you're loving this video right now, but you're also having other thoughts about what you're making for dinner tonight or whatever. It's just inevitable. We have 60,000 thoughts. So if we're going to have that many thoughts, let's take them captive and notice when we fall into a fixed mindset and see if we can redirect into more of a growth mindset. So here's a couple examples. And these are sort of voices that you hear in your head when you're in a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. If you hear yourself saying, I'm just not good at this, much like I did with the art class, I'm just not good at art, I want you to just add a little word to the end of it. And I got this from Carol Dweck. I want you to say yet. I'm just not good at this yet, and change and reframe the story you're telling yourself. When you hear, I wish I didn't have to learn this. Like every time I get a new upgrade to my iPhone and there's a new interface, I can't stand that. But instead of saying, I wish I didn't have to learn this, reframe and tell yourself, you know what, it's going to be good for me to learn this. When you hear, I hope that nobody realizes that I'm struggling, or people say, fake it till you make it, which I really don't love, reframe and take control of the situation and say, who can I ask to help me with this? That's a growth mindset statement. My favorite one, though, is generally when we are experts at something that we feel is in our expertise, we take a lot of shortcuts. And a lot of times in a business scenario, this will happen. Someone comes to you with a new idea, maybe something that you tried a few years ago. And before it's even out of their mouth, you might say, yeah, we tried that before. It didn't work. Okay, you're shutting that down. Such a fixed mindset. Instead, listen and reframe and say, you know what? Here's what we tried a couple of years ago. It didn't work. What can we learn from what happened before that when we do this again, we can get better this next time? When you practice this reframe, I'm so curious, but I guarantee you that you are going to start to feel and act differently. You'll move from the fixed mindset feelings of frustration and just anxiety to growth mindset feelings of being in control, like feeling determined and empowered and engaged. And I will tell you, when you're in a growth mindset, you're failing quite a bit because you're pushing the limits on things that you've never done before or trying new things. And I can't say that I love to fail, but every great success is on the other side of a failure of some sort. Growth mindset starts with you practicing as an individual. But we can also bring growth mindset into the work that we do with organizations. Because when an organizational culture is made up with people that have a growth mindset and that organization culture becomes a growth mindset, what we see happening is greater innovation, greater sharing, greater teamwork, and it's really phenomenal. And every single client that I bring this to has those same exact results. I want to share with you my personal story of what I experienced when I was at Microsoft and why I became so passionate about it. And if you're interested, I'll put in the show notes a case study from the Neuroleadership Institute that did a case study on Microsoft as well. Satya Nadella, when he came on board, said, we needed to change our organization from where we are today, a bunch of know-it-alls, to becoming a bunch of learn-it-alls. And that's where it started. For me, experiencing the change within Microsoft, and let me start by saying, I love Microsoft. My time there was always phenomenal. And so this is a good to great story. So when you hear me talking about Microsoft and some of the things that weren't so great, they were always good. But back before growth mindset, there were a lot of silos in the company. Sharing and teaming really wasn't encouraged. I think our customers felt that in the way sometimes products across different product teams didn't seamlessly work together. We had competition for resources. Internal teams were sort of competing for resources. Even teams that I was on, we would compete with one another and never share. And probably one of the most damaging thing was that bad news did not travel fast. We got rewarded for successful outcomes, and we kind of got chided a little bit for bad outcomes. And so we would never talk about the troubling or challenging things that were happening in our business, and bad news didn't travel fast. Post this growth mindset where we started to challenge ourselves, to hear feedback, to work collaboratively, the entire culture changed. And I'll just give you one example. Prior to growth mindset, I had to go do a business review every single month. I had to go represent my business to very senior leaders and be accountable to it. Prior to growth mindset, I would walk in and it would sort of go like this. Look at all the great things that we're doing. Please don't ask me about all these things that are not going well. And I would try to hide them and maybe find 30 more days to fix them, right? Post-growth mindset, this is how the business reviews went because I was judged on the control of my business. Of course, we were always looking for successful outcomes, but I was more judged on the control. So the business review would go like this. Hi, look at all these great things happening in my business. I'm very proud of the team. And here's a few things that are not going so well. Here's what we tried. This is what we learned. And this is what we're doing about it. And by the way, do any of you have any ideas for me? Okay. So you can see in that example what started happening. We started actually talking about the hard stuff. We made changes very, very quickly, and we started rewarding people with this growth mindset. Again, I'll draw you back to that Microsoft stock price. There was a lot going on in that time period, but you would have a hard time convincing me that this growth mindset culture didn't have a lot to do with that complete transformation. Growth mindset starts at the top organizationally. So if you're interested in what can this do for your organization, it must be embraced by senior leaders. You must model the growth mindset yourself and coach it. And you must think in an organization about all the systems that reinforce those behaviors. So for example, it's one thing to say we have a growth mindset. It's another thing if I went into that business review and I opened up about what was challenging and I got my head lopped off in that business review meeting, I would never do it again. So you have to make sure you have the systems in place. A lot of organizations take a look at their performance management systems and align them to a growth mindset principles. So I want to encourage you to get started. And how do you get started? I want you to practice. For the next couple of weeks, just notice what's going on in your own mind. Notice those fixed mindset thoughts you're having. You'll be surprised at how many you actually have, and start transitioning them into growth mindset thoughts. I then want you to start taking that into coaching others around you, your family members and kids, your team at work. And then if you're interested in exploring more deeply how to embed these things culturally in your organization, research working with organizations like Neuroleadership Institute or independent coaches like me. So I'm so excited to hear how you're going to put this into play. Please drop a comment to share what you're learning. I'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to subscribe to Executive Access. We're dropping new content every Tuesday. Thank you so much.